Hi there. We're going to test a whole range of on-camera flash modifiers because the question always comes up, which are the best flash modifiers? There should be some kind of comparison. What I want to show is that if you don't put any thought into it, they pretty much do the same thing and they give you the same miserable results. So there are two places you can use an on-camera flash modifier. Indoors, to soften the light, spread more light, or whatever it is you want to do with it. Or outdoors, we have nothing to bounce your flash off and then create a larger light source. So for this test, we're going to work specifically indoors in the studio. It's a fairly big place, not too large, but it is kind of large. The ceiling is 14 feet high, and it extends quite a distance to the back. So it's going to be a fair test if we bounce our flash here or use the on-camera modifiers. So we have a whole bunch of rogue light benders here. We have the spin light here with all the cards and domes. We have the plastic cup that comes with the Nikon speed lights, which are very similar to the Stoffen plastic cup. We have the Westcott little mini softbox, one of them. They make a whole range of them. Then we have, the black foamy thing. We have the Magmod. They have one of the things they have is this dome. Then speaking of domes, we have the Fong Lightsphere. So we have these flash modifiers, and we're going to compare the results doing straightforward portraits of our model Adrian. So when you use flash indoors, probably the worst thing you can do, unless your name is Terry Richardson, is shoot hard direct flash. It's not good. It gives you specular lighting and a hard shadow. And as we expect, that's exactly what we get. It looks very snapshotty, not nice. The best thing you can do is just turn that flash around. Bounce it into the entire room. What am I bouncing off? I don't know, part of the studio, part of the ceiling. I'm bouncing into the direction that I want the light to come from. And instantly it looks awesome. I get beautiful, soft, even light. Catch light in the eye. Now I am shooting at 200th of a second, f5.6, 800 ISO, specifically because I need to do a comparison test without flash to show that the results we're getting here is mostly the flash, that the ambient light just doesn't register. I want to show you what the flash is doing. So that is just straightforward bounce flash behind me. Gets the job done. Now let's look at what the flash modifiers do. So the first light modifier you're going to use is the very famous Fong Lightsphere, somehow more famous than the black foamy thing. How that stings. Now, from experience, I know it's going to be a bit of a mission to attach this thing to the flash because it's very tight. We'll blame the flash modifier instead of my own clumsiness in attaching it. Oh, there we go. The one thing that I don't like about it is it's very top heavy. It's really heavy. So with something like the SB900, it tends to just topple over. However, let's use it. Now working indoors, shooting vertically, I can tell you now what's going to happen with all of these light modifiers. We're throwing light forward. It doesn't just diffuse it. With a bounce flash, there was no direct flash on my subject. Now there is direct flash. You are going to see a flash shadow. And as predicted, the light is much, much better than direct flash, but there's a flash shadow. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, next up is the Magmod. It's a very elegant system. Everything attaches with magnets. Elegant, love it. Now, the system also has a whole series of grids and gels and so on. The grids for on-camera flash for portraits doesn't really make sense to me, so we're just going to use this dome. And using it in this way, as an on-camera flash modifier in a portrait situation where you could have bounced flash, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to give us a noticeable side shadow. It does diffuse the light a lot better than direct flash, but still not doing what we needed to do. Beautiful portrait lighting. So next up, the flash cup, a little plastic flash modifier that comes up. I expect this to fare worse than the others because it's a smaller light source, but it's still going to give us the same thing. It's going to diffuse, spread some light around, which gives it diffuse light, but there is going to be hard direct flash. It is the nature of what these things do. Surprisingly not that awful. actually fares fairly well. And I think it might be because it's a relatively small area that throws light forward. But still, there's a noticeable sideways shadow. And then there's a little Westcott soft box that you can put in your flash. There's a whole range of them out on the market as well. Now, for horizontal portraits, they probably work a lot better, but I still see a hard direct shadow. But it is much better than just the small flash head. So in a horizontal position, I can't bounce this, or I could, but then it doesn't make sense. Then I could just bounce without. So let's use it this way. Noticeable hard shadow. The shadow's edges are softer because it's a larger light source, but it doesn't do what you want it to do. I think it will work very well in a situation where you can't bounce your flash outdoors, really big venue. Then it might do it, but indoors in a place where you're going to bounce your flash, you're better off, like most of them, just getting rid of it and bouncing your flash behind you, creating a large light source. Let's go on to the next one. Next up, the Rogue Flashbender. There's a whole range of them out there, really nice. Smaller sizes, larger sizes. I think let's randomly try the larger size. The larger the light source, the softer the light. So we'll try the larger one and see how that works. It's like a little hand puppet. So we have the largest flash Rogue bender on the camera. I think it'll work pretty well if you're outdoors or in an area where you can't bounce your flash. It's really the largest of the flash modifiers that I have here. But again, for a horizontal bounce flash, let's see. Well, I can tell you now what it's going to do. Let's rotate it a little bit, which in itself is a bit of a mission. There we go. Yeah. Did not fare as well as the others. The flash shadow is a lot more distinct. I think it's because the translucent material isn't that thick. Let's go on to the next one. Next up we get to the spin light. It's a very interesting, very versatile light modifier, but you also have to adapt it to whatever the situation is that you're in, because it's a rotating disc, which makes it easy to use in vertical and horizontal formats, but it comes with a variety of modifiers which you then have to apply depending where you are and what you want to do. For example, it comes with different sized white bounce cards, ideal if you're outside or in a large area where you need to throw light forward. So you'd stick it in and you'd have a large bounce card. Alternately, you could add a flag, a short flag or a larger flag to block the light from hitting your subject, very much like the black foamy thing does. Then it has snoots and half cups. It has different cups with different translucency. So really, you're going to adapt it to whatever situation you are in. So in a situation like this, doing vertical portraits of a subject, you're not going to add a white card because otherwise it'll just do exactly what the other light modifiers are doing, the one solution light modifiers. In this case, with a spin light, you know what? I would just not use a card and bounce my light behind me. And use the other things that I adapted with for different scenarios. So spin light in this case, how I would use it is with nothing. I would just take everything off. In other words, simply bare flash. And the photograph would look exactly like the bounce flash would. Okay, you convinced me. Let's add the white card and shoot with it and see what it does. As expected, there's a shadow. It's fairly soft. It's not as hard as some of the others, but we're not using it in the proper way that it's meant to be. We should be using it as a bounce flash. So I would just take it off and just use proper bounce flash. And there's magic. Clean open light, sparkling the eye. Next up, the black foamy thing. So the black foamy thing is a piece of black foam that I use to flag my flash. It blocks the light from hitting my subject directly. How would I use the black foamy thing in a simple situation like this where I can bounce a flash behind me, photograph a portrait? I would not use it. I would bend it back, bare flash, so I can just get proper bounce flash. And without it being there, it looks like proper bounce flash without the black foamy thing, because I'm using it by not using it, because it doesn't make sense to use the black foamy thing. It's not a diffuser, it's not a light modifier where you throw light forward. Now, if I'm polite with the people behind me and I don't want to blitz them in the eyes with flash, I might flag it. I would turn around, So it blocks the light from hitting people in the eyes behind me. So that's all I would do in a case like this with bounce flash, just blocking light from hitting people behind me. So the summary of all this is you really have to put thought into what you want to do with bounce flash. Just slapping any old light modifier onto your flash to solve your problems is not going to solve your problems. It might even create some problems for you. So let's go look at what we do with directional bounce flash. And then we see where the black foamy thing and the spin light come into their own compared to the other light modifiers. So just to wrap it up, bounce flash indoors, bounce it behind you, looks awesome, clean, open, even, flattering light. But I just want to show you quickly again, there is a video clip on how I use the black foamy thing, but just as a summary, here's how I would use it. We have Adrienne there, I'm going to bounce my flash past her, off the wall. I'm going to get light from there. I'm creating a virtual softbox right over there. This piece of black foam just flags my light from hitting her directly. And there we go. It's fairly even, but I'm still getting more light on that side of her face. I'm going to be a little more bold in where I bounce it. Let's see how that works. There we go. Catch light in the eye, more light on that side of the face, a gradient of light on the other side. Looks great. And this is what I would do with a black foamy thing. A very specific way of bouncing my flash and flagging the light that doesn't hit my model directly. Now, where most of the light modifiers fall down when you work indoors is they throw light forward onto your subject, which means flat lighting. It means a hard shadow of some kind behind them. Your best bet if you're working indoors with bounce flash is get rid of everything. Bounce your flash behind you, create a large light source. It works like a charm. And you know what? It costs you nothing.